Yo, what is going on, guys? Winter Kills here, and welcome to the first video of 2023. And we're starting things off by going back in time here with this deck profile. I'm going to be showing you guys my 2015 NAWCQ format Infernoid deck profile. Now, why am I bothering showing off a deck from 8 years ago? It's because I recently have gotten into playing retro formats with my friends, and we're starting off with 2015 NAWCQ format. It's very near and dear to all of us. This is right around the time I started getting back into Yu-Gi-Oh! Competitively again, and this deck is very near and dear to my heart. A lot of fond memories playing it. I took this deck to my very first regional ever. That profile is actually still up on my channel somewhere if you guys want to dig around and find it. But it feels really great not only to be messing around with Infernoid cards again, but to be just reliving this format for what it was. Very much a triangle format, and was very, very enjoyable, right? Not only could you play the best decks that there were, like Necros, BA, and Shadal, but there were also a lot of really other good decks that were contenders in the format too, like Infernoid, Satellarknight, Clifford, just to name a couple of them. And yeah, it was a very, very awesome format, and it's nice to be able to escape the hell that is the current format. I myself have not been enjoying this format whatsoever, and I'm trying to steer clear of it as much as I possibly can because of the train wreck that it is, and this is one of the ways that I'm choosing to escape, among other things. So if you guys have found yourself playing other retro formats, this current format like I have been, maybe this will be of use, of inspiration, or maybe a sign to try playing some retro formats yourself. It is a lot of fun. I thought for the longest time I would never enjoy doing something like this until I went and did it, and lo and behold, it was a lot of fun and just such a blast from the past. A very, very welcome thing. So we're going to go ahead and hop into the profile here in just a moment, but this playmat that I'm using, actually, let me zoom back out here, is Imperium Duelist, brand new playmat they're going to be releasing this Friday. I'll put the date up on the screen. It's kind of an homage to the vintage playmats and Spellgrounds, things like that. The reason I like this one so much is it looks very similar, at least color scheme-wise, to a Spellground that I used to have many, many years ago. So I love the color for that reason. I love the design as well. It's two-sided. The cloth is extremely soft. You guys know Imperium. Their cloth mats are extremely soft, very high quality, and this one is no exception. So if you guys want to pick it up, you can do so by using my discount code WinterKills10 off at checkout to save 10% off your entire order. Same thing like this hat. The sleeves I'm using on the extra deck, or the main deck here, the inner and outer sleeves are all Imperium sleeves. So definitely check those out. And also don't forget to use my TCG Player affiliate link found in the description below. So let's go ahead and hop into the monsters here. First part of the profile. Also using a new camera here for the face cam. Hope you guys are liking that. So we have 3 copies of Infernoid Antra. Few baseline things about the Infernoid monsters. First and foremost, none of the Infernoid monsters except for Decatron, which is not released yet for this particular format. They cannot be normal summoned or set. They can only be special summoned from the hand, some from the hand or graveyard. The level 4 lower ones can only be summoned from hand. And all level 5 or higher can be summoned from both hand and grave, but they can only be summoned by banishing other Infernoid monsters from the hand or the grave, and they can only be summoned while the total levels / ranks of all effect monsters on your field are 8 or lower, and all of them are DD Crows except for the level 9 and level 10. They're all pretty much DD Crows by attributing 1 monster you control. And they also have a set of unique effects on their own. Antra can target a face-up card our opponent controls, and we can return it to the hand. I believe it's an opponent's card. Yeah, it'd be nice if you could bounce back your own cards, like your Raidens or Card Troopers. That'd be really nice, but you can only bounce back opponent's face-up card. So decent spot removal. Not the best form of spot removal, specifically against decks like Necros. We don't want to be handing them back Unicors and Trishes and Valks. But against other decks like BA bouncing back their Dantes, if they weren't able to get access to Downward for whatever reason, or against the Satellarknight bouncing back their extra deck monsters, or against Shadal bouncing back their extra deck monsters specifically, as those will get their effects when they hit the grave. Also being a DD Crow, quick effect by attributing 1 monster, only during the opponent's turn. All the level 4 lowers are only during the opponent's turn. We have 3 Harmatic. Great card, one of the absolute stars of the show when this deck first came out. Can just pop any monster on the field regardless of position, so you can pop your own Card Troopers. You can pop other monsters that are clogging up your fields from some of the other Infernoids because of the level restriction. Also a quick effect DD Crow during the opponent's turn. Also, when you use the effect to pop a monster, it cannot attack. So that's when sometimes you might want to overlay with it for a rank 3 or synchro into a synchro 7 to you know, get better use of the body since it no longer can attack. We've already used its effect. 3 Patrulia, 3 Patty. This guy is a spell and trap pop, but he cannot attack, much like Harmatic when you use that effect that turn. And again, a quick effect DD Crow during the opponent's turn. Him being level 4 is great because we do have a good rank 4 toolbox in the extra deck. So that is nice to be able to help access some of those rank 4s. 1 Infernoid Piety. The effect of this guy doesn't really come up that often. He's just another name, essentially something that we want to mill to the graveyard. But the effect does come up sometimes, right? When it deals battle damage, we can basically rip a random card out of our opponent's hand. Really good against decks like Satellar Knight and Necroz, taking away that hand advantage. Also a DD Crow during either player's turn, because this is one of the level 5 or higher. So it's kind of the common theme with the level 5 through higher Infernoids. So DD Crow, tributing 1 monster we control during either player's turn, which is a huge effect against a lot of matchups. Against, you know, Necroz, we can snipe their mirrors and Shurits out of their graveyard, or Jin, so they can't Jin lock. We can also snipe out things like, you know, Seer and Dante targets against Burning Abyss, or Altair targets against the Teller Knight, or add back targets for the Shadal deck. Really great card. All really fantastic cards for countering those decks. That's why I feel like this deck doesn't really have a bad matchup per se. I'd say its worst matchup might be Cliffort, because they don't have any graveyard really for us to ever interact with. And dealing with towers sometimes can be tough. And the reoccurring Pendulum Summon, you know, NAWCQ kind of loses its value, but I digress. 3 Sightimists, level 7, helps us access our rank 7s, the few that we do play or that we can play. There's only a couple viable rank 7s at this point in time. Basically, when this card destroys an opponent's monster by battle, during the end of the battle phase, we can activate the effect where we can banish 1 card on the field. Or this card attacks an opponent's monster, and have to destroy it, just needs to attack it. We can non-target banish a card at the end of the battle phase, which is huge, especially against decks like, you know, Burning Abyss. You know, we run into their monsters, they're floating, right? We attack into a Seer, brings back a Dante, fine, end phase, banish the Dante, end battle phase, banish the Dante, or they attack into a Graph brings out a Seer, right? End battle phase, banish out the Seer, or banish out the Skarm. Really great removal for that kind of format. 3 copies of Atondal. This guy lets you push for a game. When this card destroys an opponent's monster by battle and sends it to the graveyard, we can attack again. And we can put 2 of these on the field. It's not a hard once per turn effect. So you can attack like 4 times with just 2 of these guys on board. And again, quick effect DD Crow during either player's turn. And then the boss monster for Infernoid. 2 Infernoid Anunku, or Anunsu, however you choose to pronounce it. It takes 3 Infernoids to be able to banish to summon it from hand or grave. And when it is summoned, we can destroy all other monsters on the field. And there is some nice synergy with that. We can protect some of other Infernoids using a card we're playing later, a spell called Void Seer. Or we can blow up our own card trooper to draw a card, since it just has to be you know, sent to the graveyard, period. And this is a spell and trap negate. During either player's turn, by tributing a monster, we can negate the activation if we do banish that card. It's great removal, especially against things like Burning Abyss, against the Teller Knight, and against Necroz. They have some valuable spells and traps that we'd rather not have them be able to get back from the graveyard, or get value out of them being in the graveyard, like their Mirrors, Fire Lakes, or, you know, things like Call the Haunted, or Oasis of Dragon Souls against a deck like Satellar Knight, so they can't recycle them with Trigger. So good card use against pretty much any deck, and blows up Pendulum Scales too. Well, that's Deviati, I'm getting them mixed up, but we can negate Pendulum Scales, things like Scout. So yeah, those are all the Infernoids. I believe that's 18 total Infernoids for the deck. Almost half the deck is Infernoid names. You don't want to play so many Infernoid names because you don't want to brick on them. The worst hands you'll draw in this deck are all Infernoid hands. So you need to be able to see some starters, because unfortunately none of the Infernoids are starter cards, at least not yet. Again, we don't have Decatron. So for some of the starters, what are we playing? We're playing the good old Card Trooper. Back when I played this deck, I had the ultra rare Card Trooper, so I had to get him again. Basically, once per turn, we can send up to 3 cards in the top of our deck, and then it gains 500 attack for each card sent to the graveyard this way until the end of this turn. When this card on your side of the field is destroyed and sent to the graveyard, you can draw 1 card. So one of my favorite interactions is sometimes crashing this to draw, using Harmatic to pop it to draw, or using Anunku, blowing this up, and then drawing a card after we resolve the effect of Anunku. Try to dig a little deeper. But yeah, can just boost itself up to 1900. which is great, and mills 3 cards every turn, and if they clear it, we basically replaces itself by giving us another card in the hand. Then I play the Lightsworn engine. This is an engine that I wasn't playing back in the day, at least for a little while, but I think, you know, with my modern mindset as a player, which is another cool thing about playing retro formats, you kind of like, especially if it's a format you played in way back in the day, you can kind of compare your mindsets and see how your deck building ideals have changed over the years. I know mine definitely have. I always like to think that I'm a better player now than I was 8 years ago, right? But I think playing the Lightsworn stuff makes the most sense because it gives the extra deck more utility, gives the deck more utility in general. Lila being able to outspells and traps is nice, and obviously Raiden being a tuner. And you just need to see more cards that let you access your engine. I think the build I was playing in the past didn't play the Lightsworn engine. But again, you need starters, and playing the Lightsworn engine gets us up to about 11 starters, 13 if you want to count the 2 Needlebug Nests, even though it is a little slower. But we need to access our engine as soon as possible. We need to get Infernoids in the graveyard by any means possible. So that's it for all the monsters in the main deck. The 18 Infernoids plus the basically five normal summons of the deck. Then we have for spells, we have 3 Reasoning. This is not the reason this deck's not the reason this card got hit. I believe it was because of Cosmo. This card's at 1 right now in current format, but this card's great. Your opponent declares a monster level, activate cards from the top of your deck, and you activate a monster that can be normal summon a set. If that monster is the same level as the one declared by your opponent, send all activated cards to the graveyard. If not, special summon the activated monster. Also send the remaining cards to the graveyard. So in this deck, our opponent's going to have an option of calling 3 or 4. You know, we either... if they call the number right, we don't summon the monster, and everything else goes to the grave, which is fine. If they call it wrong, we get the body on field, and any of the bodies that we'll be summoning are cards that can mill more cards. So even if we turn over a Raiden immediately and they call 3, we summon the Raiden, and we can mill 2 more cards, 4 more cards, technically, because the end phase mills. But none of the Infernoid monsters can be normal summoned or set, so they will just go to the grave regardless, and they will not, you know, get triggered off of Reasoning, right? Which is great. One of the reasons why you play this card in here. So yeah, really great card. Sucks though because the opponent can basically call a card and they'll get it right sometimes, and it means you miss out on a free body, and sometimes that hurts, sometimes it doesn't matter, especially if you mill a ton of names. That's why Monster Gate is just better, which I think it's weird that Monster Gate's at 3 right now and Reasoning's at 1. But right now we have 2 copies of Charged Light Brigade. This card was at 2 for this format, so wanted to play 2. Great starter. Mills 3, adds us another card that mills more cards, so great card for that reason. Dark Hole, for some one-of spells here, we have Dark Hole, Galaxy Cyclone, Burial from a Different Dimension, Monster Gate, and Void Seer. These cards all serve a very specific role in this deck. Dark Hole is not only a Jin out, but it can help us clear our board if it's clogged with levels and stuff, and also can prop Card Trooper. Galaxy Cyclone, a Vanity's Emptiness out in the graveyard, and also can snipe back row while it's in the hand. Burial gives us a grind game by recycling up to 3 banished monsters back into our graveyard. Also thought about playing Miracle Dig in here. It's basically the same thing as Burial, it's just not a quick play, and has a bit of a stricter activation requirement when you leave 5 or more monsters banished. Right now I just don't really have the room for it, but I do miss the card sometimes, definitely. Monster Gate, again, basically just Reasoning on crack, and Void Seer, the one of tech. Quick play, we can target an Infernoid monster control, or that monster is unaffected by our opponent's card effects for the rest of the turn. And then an Infernoid monster or monsters we control would be destroyed by a card effect. We can banish this card from your graveyard instead of destroying one of those monsters. So really solid card because we can like summon an Atandal, then an Anunku, use the Anunku effect to blow up the board, and then we can use the Void Seer to protect our Infernoid monster from being destroyed by the Anunku. So we get to keep that body while our opponent loses everything, which is fantastic. Into the traps, here we have 3 copies of Breakthrough Skill. Beautiful looking card. Shout out to my brother for letting me borrow these. Yeah, I mean, it's a double value card. We can use it once on the field, and we can use it again in the graveyard, and also we can mill this card and still get value out of it. So it's basically a no-brainer in here. Don't know why I wasn't playing it in the past. 2 copies of Needlebug Nest. This is one of the cards in here that I might change to something else. I don't know. I was testing out Hand Destruction as a way to like dig into the deck more, but that card sometimes is a little awkward. Only works in hands where your hands are filled with Infernoids, but this card's nice. It's a little slow, but you know, it's a really good card. Just mill 5. And then we have 1 TT and 1 Vanity's Emptiness. I hate this card so much, but you gotta play it. Got the OG common, even though it looks ugly. And then we have the Torrential Tribute. Again, another Jin out, way to clear the board, proc card, troopers, etc. And just overall around solid card, and is a way to not get OTK'd under Lancia. or just, floodgate cards in general. Now moving to the extra deck, which is one of my favorite parts about this deck. Apologize for the Kagari sleeves, but we do got the Imperium Tune sleeves on there to kind of make up for it. We got one Wind-Up Zen Mains and one Dante Traveler of the Burning Abyss. A lot of these cards in the extra deck don't really come up necessarily. They come up maybe once in a blue moon, but when they come up big. Dante is obviously just a way to turn like 2 Harmatics or a Harmatic and a Card Trooper into mill more cards if we really need to see more names, and it's a 2,500 beater. Zen Mains is just a little bit of a protection, policy, and can allow us to remove cards, because if it were to be destroyed, we can basically detach material from it instead, and if we use this effect during the end phase, we can basically target a card in the field, destroy it. 2100 defense, kind of a cute card. This card was like $100, I think, when it first came out, which is insane how the mighty have fallen, but really cool throwback card. In the extra deck, we have one number 106 Giant Hand. I believe at the time this deck would have been playable. In this format, this card was a prize card only, but luckily Modern Yu-Gi-Oh! Has afforded us a cheaper alternative. A nice little reprint. Thank you to Legendary Duelist 9. But yeah, Giant Hand, solid card. I don't think I've summoned it yet, but in theory it's there for a reason. Diamond Dyer for spot removal, classic card. Same thing with the Castel, very revolutionary card when it came out. Spot removal that doesn't destroy. That's one of the biggest things about it. So we can clear Delta Roses and Trivers without proccing their effects, and we can also get rid of things like Shadal Winda and Construct without proccing their effects as well, because they get their effects into the grave, and things like Dante and other Burning Abyss monsters. Then we have one Exciton Knight, Zeus before Zeus was ever a thing, Abyss Dweller because you got to play Dweller, Gemnite Pearl because this is a non-effect monster and does not count towards our total levels of monsters on the field or ranks, so allows us to basically put more Infernoids on the board. Number 80, Rhapsody Berserk, insane card in this format, basically detach 2 to DD Crow as a double DD Crow. It's up to twice per turn, and then we can just target a face-up monster we control and equip this card to it, and it gains 1200 attack, so it's a free 1200 boost after we've DD Crow'd 2 cards out of our opponent's graveyard. Number 101, classic card, absolute GOAT, rank 4. So rank 4 toolbox in this extra deck. The only other cards you could play in here would maybe be like a Ragna Zero, but Ragna Zero is really not that great of a card. Really only good against Cliffort. And the only other cards that are decent rank 4s would be like Emerald, but Emerald doesn't really make too much sense in here because like you don't really want to put back Infernoids into the deck, and then you don't want to put back normal summons, especially if you're a card counter though, because you're just like getting them as bodies to normal summon mill, and you're not really milling any names, so I don't know. I think the rank 4 lineup is really strong as is. We have one number 11 Big Eye for rank 7. We have one Felgran, one Heretic Sun Dragon, Overlord of Heliopolis. Huge mass removal right here. Protection, Felgran, which is insane this format, and Big Eye is just Big Eye. Although I was playing Dracosac, so I don't know if I'd play Dracosac over Big Eye, because the extra deck space is pretty tight. Despite things rarely coming up, you just want them there in case. I guess maybe I could cut the Black Rose for a Dracosac, but Black Rose is huge in this deck because not only does it like wipe the entire field and like kind of reset the game state, but it also clears itself off the field because it destroys all monsters in the field, itself included. So it can wipe itself out and then reset your field to be able to summon more Infernoids, because you can just play out of the graveyard. And Scrap Archfiend, same concept behind Gemnite Pearl. It is a non-effect monster, so it does not count towards our levels and ranks. It allows us to pile on damage. And one of the reasons why I love old school Infernoid is because you get to play silly cards like Gemnite Pearl and Scrap Archfiend. As simple as it may seem, I just love that interaction quite a bit. So now we're going to go into the side deck here. I will admit my side deck's it's a little goofy. I'm not going to lie. Because I don't have a lot of good side deck cards right now for this format. Definitely could be better. So we have 3 copies of Danko Sekka, the star of the show. We're quick scoping back row. Better have the Solemn Warning. Insane card. This card cannot be normal, or it cannot be special summoned, so we don't have to worry about getting it off of the Reasoning or Monster Gate, so it's not going to affect our mills post side, which is one of the reasons I love this. I was thinking about playing Jinzo, but I like being able to play this at 3. You could play multiple Jinzos, but I think 3 Danko Sekka just being an easy normal summon is just a little better. 2 Lancia for the Necroz matchup and the Mirror matchup. 1 Vanity's Fiend just to be able to slap an Inferno on field and then tribute over it for this. 1 Spell Canceller to summon off a Reasoning or Monster Gate because they're never going to call level 5. 1 Maxi because I only own 1 Maxi, probably should be more. 3 Shared Ride for Necroz. 1 Raigeki for just going second and beating Jin. 1 MST for more back row hate, since the Dankos are probably not going to be enough in most cases, 1 warning, and 1 skill drain for going first. Skill drain works really well in this deck, mainly because all the Infernoids, they tribute themselves off the field for cost, so we can just use their DD Crow's effect even while skill drain is up, which is fantastic. And Dante mills 3 for cost too, so if we can get to a Dante, we can still mill cards under the skill drain. So that is going to do it for this 2015 NAWCQ profile. I really hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, be sure to leave a like. I'm not going to do any test hands or anything right now because it's, you know, pretty straightforward deck, let's be honest. It's one of the beautiful things about playing retro formats is things are just very simple. But it's not caveman Yu-Gi-Oh! And it's not what we have nowadays. It's kind of right in that sweet spot, at least I think, for the time being. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed it. I will be uploading some retro format duels, some IRL duels. Hope you guys are looking forward to that as well. So make sure to subscribe to the channel if you want to see those in the future. And thank you guys for supporting. Hopefully this is a start to a great year, despite the format being what it is, right? Yeah, Winterkill signing out. Thank you guys so much for the support. We'll see you guys in the next one. And last but not least, a big thank you goes to our Divine level channel members who are Pony Star, Cadillacs 84, HC8 Cyber, and Misfit. Thank you guys so much for being our current Divine level members. Your support is greatly appreciated. And again, thank you so much for your support.